Hello, Dr. Joe.
Hello, Dr. Ibi.
How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good, thank you. We're back.
We are.
We took a break last month.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're back.
Yeah. Having played, I don't know what percent of the blueprints.
Uh-huh.
I think something like 95, judging on what I've seen online.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about the blueprints today.
And this is kind of why we did our loose semiotics primer last time, because we wanted to cover the blueprints as or just after playing it.
Yeah.
And then we realised it's very hard to discuss how the blueprints relates to language without having these other terms to talk with.
Yes. And also there is lots in blueprints which is about communication and signification more broadly than just language as well.
Yes.
No.
Just to summarise the game, I'll try and do this quickly because people who listen to this probably have played it. If you haven't
This is
played
going to be
this
interesting.
game, it is what you'd call a drafting game. So in the board game space, you have drafting games like the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which was a direct thing. This game was a direct inspiration for this game. And in that, you're building a big castle and you draw little rooms and you put them down on a table and you build a big castle and you score depending on how you build the castle. And then you've got other tile-based games like Carcassonne where you build a little town using tiles. So half of the game is that. That's the thing you're doing as you play the game. But then your perspective as a player is you are actually in this house. You're not looking down on a board game. So you go up to a door, you open the door, and then it says, which of these 3 rooms do you want? So there's a deck of these rooms that exist somewhere like cards, and you pick one of 3, and you're trying to fulfill various different goals in the house, like get to the other side and find out how to unlock this room. And then there are various different layers of puzzles, some of which you might take tens of hours to resolve. And we should say up front, there's going to be spoiler alert for some of the puzzles. We're not talking a walkthrough here, but if you haven't played it and you intend to play it, you might get some things spoiled when we talk about it here. But it's very hard to talk about the stuff we want to talk about in terms of what the game does and what's interesting about the game without discussing the content of some of the puzzles. So that said, there are so many puzzles. So even if you went into this game with 3 or 4 puzzles spoiled for you, there is so much in this game to work out for yourself. And one of the things that we found when we were playing it is the online community is very good at giving staggered hints for this. Like the wiki is set up in such a certain way where you go, is this thing a puzzle? And you look it up and then it says, yes, this is a puzzle. And then it's like, do you want to know more about this puzzle? And then you unhide the next thing and so on. But yeah, in terms of the story of the game, you are a young heir who has been given this big mansion that is a weird mansion where you can build the rooms every day.
Yeah, your name is Simon.
Your name is Simon.
Your granduncle died and you inherit this castle, but the actual inheritance depends on a challenge, which is you have to find room 46 in the mansion.
And there only appear to be 45 slots on the board because it's a 9x5 grid.
I think that's true.
So in terms of like the overall narrative design, it's very similar to what they do in real life escape rooms, where you go into the escape room and it's like, oh, this escape room is a bank robbery, or we're trying to find the hidden jewels of this, but it's applied to like a whole house of rooms that all have puzzles in. It's like a fractal escape room, like a escape rooms inside an escape room type thing.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because the game begins telling you are the heir, your inheritance depends on you finding room 46. And in our brains, I think, and in many players' games, I think from what I've seen of discussions online, people assume, oh, that is the game.
Yes.
The goal of the game is finding room 46.
Yes, and my understanding is that the early builds of the game, that was basically where it ended as well.
It's not now.
Not now, no. It's
the first step in a multi-step layered puzzle that goes much deeper than that,
Yeah,
which
there's
includes
lots to do.
uncovering the history of your family, uncovering the history of this world you live in, and the connections between family and the world.
Yes, because when you you could play this game for a few hours before you realize it's not in our world. You know, of course, there's this kind of contraption that doesn't make sense, but it could just be magical realism. But there's not much to indicate early on in the game that this isn't just in like
Canada.
yeah, it appears to be some sort of alternate history. There's computers, but everything feels a bit older than that. It feels like a sort of weird diesel punk. There's like computers that seem to be like 1970s
It's also
computers,
set
and then there's
in, is it what is the 1990s in the world of the
yes,
game,
yeah,
which makes you think, oh, it's just in the 90s, but I think it's the 90s.
yeah.
But it's a totally different, it's not our planet.
Yeah, so and the interesting thing is nothing about what you're doing in the first few hours of this game really leads you to believe that it's going to be much of a deep narrative game. You sort of find some letters and stuff that explain about the family, and you start to learn about the family, but you're just like, yeah, whatever, this is like dressing on a puzzle. In the same way that in an escape room, you're there to do the puzzles, and there might be some story about the Baron's jewels or something, but
Yeah.
you're there to do the and the way it unfolds and kind of slowly involves you in this world, like those later puzzles that you were alluding to, really require you to engage with the fantasy world that you exist in, or the alternative world you exist in a way that games just generally don't require you to. Like a Final Fantasy game or whatever, you know, thousands of hours put into the world building of that, but it's never gonna throw you a quiz on like the history of that world. It's
Which
just
is something that's
which
literally
is
in this
literally
game.
something that happens. So it's very much a game where you need to sit with a notepad, and it's also harking back to in the late 90s. Now you can play this game on a console, but in the late 90s there were a series of games that were PC only puzzle games that were first person, and the one that this gets compared to most is Myst, which is like a first person puzzle game. You're walking around through the character's eyes, and there's various convoluted puzzles in an environment, and some of them are math puzzles and some of them are, they're all just different types of logic puzzles. And then there was another one called Seventh Guest, which is the same thing with a horror setting in a spooky mansion and stuff like that. It feels very much like it's drawing on those quite a bit, in the sense that it's this first person, very cerebral puzzle game. There's no combat, there's no direct peril. There are moments where the tone of the game feels like it's leaning towards horror.
Yeah.
There are some very spooky moments, but it's almost
No
more
jump scares.
no jump scares, no.
No creepy, crawly, disgusting anything.
No, but I mean, there are some very eerie moments in terms of what
Yeah.
happens with the music, the way the story is being narrated. There are some very eerie moments, but it never fully goes into horror.
Yeah.
In that way, and
It's very, very pretty. Like it's visually very pretty.
yes, it's kind of like low poly, looks a bit like a cartoon. I could imagine Tintin walking into this world. It's got that kind of
Yeah.
mid-century kitschy twee kind of feel to it that feels like a kind of kids' adventure story from earlier in the 1900s, like something like Tintin or Enid Blyton or something like that almost. And that, part of that is because it's got this focus on a rich family and you're like in their mansion and everything. But also this, the thing we're probably going to talk about a couple of times because it's puns, right? Is there is a sense of humour that pervades this game, and it has some darker moments that are about like political stuff and existential stuff to do with the family and everything. But there's also like a sense of humour in the playfulness of how puns are woven into the riddles and the puzzles and stuff like that, which is at times very, very goofy. So I'll give. Can I give the example from the pool, the swimming?
Yeah.
So there are chests that you can find because it's a video game, and they have tools in for like keys for you to advance and stuff like that, and gems, and you can upgrade some of the rooms. So you can upgrade rooms so that they have a different name, and then like was the guest bedroom becomes the quest bedroom, or you can make the guest bedroom into the Geist bedroom, and then it
Yeah.
has a ghost in
I
it.
can't believe you remembered as I had to write.
Yeah, and they're great. So there are the upgrades for the rooms, and then sometimes there are like items you can buy in the gift shop that upgrade a room. And
Yeah.
one of them was the swimming trunks, and we thought that what it doesn't tell you what it does, right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you buy it, the next time you unlock the pool, there are 2 trunks, i.e., little chests, floating in the swimming pool, and it's like you get this big groan moment, like you've just heard
It's
this
like,
dad joke. Oh, it's the trunks, they're swimming.
Yeah.
Oh. And there's lots of little moments like that. It's this very sort of dad jokey humor. It's very gentle. It's very based on wordplay.
I mean, the title of the game itself is a word play.
Blueprints. So yeah, we skimmed over that, but
Yeah,
you're building a house from blueprints.
And you are also the blueprints.
Yeah, which we don't know what that means for a very long time.
Yes. I'm wondering whether we should give a brief overview of the history of the family as you uncover it and the sort of world you live in.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So can I start vague and top level first?
All right.
There are nations that have a difficult history.
Yeah.
And there are very clear mappings of certain colours onto certain nations. And blue doesn't map onto any of them.
None of the current or historical nations in the world are associated with blue.
Yeah. So blue is the wild card. It's the colour that doesn't correspond to anything that exists in terms of a country or political system or whatever. And as you uncover more of the game, you find out more about your family, and you find that they have an antagonistic relationship with the current ruler of the country you're in.
Yeah, which is called Fen Aries,
which is
the name of the country.
represented by the colour red, which is also the colour of the bad rooms when you draft them. So there are rooms that basically there are categories of room, and the blue rooms are like the general category that like most of the basic stuff comes from.
Yeah.
And
So there are blueprints.
They are blueprints, yeah. And then there are also green prints and red prints and yellow prints
and black prints.
And black prints.
And purple prints.
And the red rooms are the rooms that usually do something negative in terms of your run. Like they take a resource away from you. They make it so you can't walk as far, or
They're dead ends.
They create some sort of complication. And so they're using kind of red as a negative colour, and that's like a generic, okay, it's a video game, we know red is bad. But then you learn that red also has this political association and
with the current regime.
With the royalists. And then eventually we learn, and this is this part that might be spoilers if you've played the first part of the game and not the later part of the game, that the royalists sort of destroyed the country that was previously there.
Yeah, there was a war, which lasted multiple years, and what's now Fen Aries used to be Arinda Aries, same territory but different country, different ruler, and the colour that was associated with that fallen empire is black.
Yeah, and so the story there is the rule of the Black Empire was a very beloved king, or the previous one a few generations ago was very beloved, and then one of their heirs sort of did a coup and started this war or something. Yeah. And then you don't start off with any black rooms, but the black prints are the rooms that are like from a long time ago, and you have this weird shifting history within the house as you build it, where there are times when you are building rooms from a particular time period. And that doesn't just go back that far. There's also like the school, where you can get these school classrooms and they get shuffled into your deck of rooms and you can build. And then there's a bit of backstory of that where you find a letter that says, oh, thank you for letting us move the school into your mansion because our building got taken over and stuff like that. There's all of these like, there's some weird time bending stuff going on with, okay, you can build all of this stuff now in the house, but some of it is giving you
some rooms
historical moments of periods gone.
So the black rooms that you can find, for instance, there's is it called the tomb that's in the outdoor building? The tomb, there's a throne room, spoiler. There is
The
a
armory,
treasure,
the
yes,
treasury
and
and the armory.
the treasury, treasure trove.
Yeah. So they are like
Um,
rooms we would think of as being from like a medieval castle.
Yeah, and they are old rooms associated with the old empire or in the areas, which is associated with the color black, which is why those specific rooms are black prints. And spoiler, as you find out, eventually the manor, the mansion that you inherited, is built on the ruins of the castle of the old king, which is why you have those old black rooms.
Yeah.
That you start to uncover as you play the game.
It does some very weird stuff with like playing fast and loose with the relationship between the game mechanics and the story, because you have this really, really strange concept of, oh yeah, this mansion changes every day, and that's just normal. Like all of the letters between the members of staff that you find are like members of staff going, oh, don't forget to draft that room tomorrow because we need to do this. And like, it's normal. It's not something that just exists in this little moment while you're playing the game. It's like normal within the universe of the game. And it being an indie game that was initially worked on by one person for years and years and years, you don't see any people in this. It's all stuff they've left behind, letters they've left behind and stuff like that because of like, animation constraints and all of that. And that means that you get so much through correspondence and letters, and there are all these little fragments. And a lot of the stuff that you're talking about in terms of when you start to get a grip on the history of the world, I would say that like the most explicit place where that starts to open out is when you first get the classrooms, because you sort of go through them in order, and one teaches you about color association. And there's this thing where you pick up the kids' worksheets and it gives you a sense of which ones were quote unquote right or wrong.
Yeah, there's always worksheets. They are marked and graded to give you, oh, they got 6 out of 8 right on this one.
Yeah.
And then you have, say, 4 different worksheets in the classroom, and you have to work out from that, oh, this one has 6 out of 8 right. This one has 3 out of 8 right. This one has 4 out of 8 right, and then you have to compare them and see, okay, which ones now actually are the correct answers.
It's like the mastermind puzzle where you do the right, but using different content every time. And when you get to like the 4th or 5th classroom, you start to get big global maps in different eras, and you start to get historical stuff.
Yeah.
But there are hints of that earlier on, because in the first one where it's like 3rd grade kids doing colours, they've had to colour stuff in on the worksheet, and there's a teacher's mark on one of the things where they say, I hope this isn't a political statement, and it's because they've coloured a flag in the politically incorrect colour.
And then at the bottom the question on the colour sheet is, what's your favourite colour? And all the kids put down red, because they're all living in this this totalitarian regime where
you have to like red.
That you have to like red. I want to quickly go through the other colour associations, both in terms of rooms and in terms of the different realms, is what they are called, the different countries. So there are, as we said, there are different kinds of rooms you can draft. You have the blue ones, which are sort of the normal common rooms, which are fairly neutral, and they give you gems or keys and other items that you can use. Then you have the red ones, which we said are detrimental, the black ones, which are sort of rare. You unlock them as you play the game, and they are associated with the castle that used to be on that property. Then there are green rooms, which are naturey rooms, like a greenhouse and a veranda.
The green rooms sort of contribute to your resources as you play the game. They give you gems that let you re-roll rooms, and they give you tools that let you dig things up and stuff. Yeah.
Orange rooms are hallways, which usually have multiple doors that lead through. So they're like the kinds of rooms that help you go through the house. Purple rooms are bedrooms, and yellow rooms are shops. And as we said, some of the colours, in association with the types of rooms they are, also have connections to the different realms, but not all of them, which is very interesting. So blue isn't associated with any of the realms that currently exist or existed in the past. But what you learn is that it sort of represents potentially the future of the country you live in, and it might be associated with revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm.
And you are supposedly the blue prince, right? The prince of the future, whatever that means.
It's the third way in this universe.
Yeah.
Neither a black prince nor a red prince, but some mysterious third type of
Yeah.
prince that we don't know of yet.
Yeah, the red is associated with the current regime of Feneries, which is apparently the family is not happy with, and they're the ones who overthrew the Orinda Aries Black realm. There's one country that's associated with green, and I had a look, and I was thinking about what we learn about this country. It's called nuance. So what we learn is every realm is associated with a color, a symbol, a type of weather or climate,
A type of transport.
a type of primary transport, and sort of the main feature of the society.
Yeah. Which could be like militaristic, or it could be like poetic or something. It's very broad.
So nuance, which is associated with green, is martial, and it's windy, apparently. So I was trying to think whether there are other associations between those kinds of features and the colours and the rooms, but I don't think in this case it is.
No, so there's a point at the game, and we don't need to go into like detail about this puzzle, but there's a point in the game where you need to gather this piece of information about all of the countries.
Yeah.
And I think some of the countries are deliberately sketched in a very rough way because the puzzle would be more hard if they gave you more detail.
Yeah.
Because it's more stuff to sift through, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, in some of those things you're talking about, you get some of the clues from postage letters that are on postcards, and it's like, oh, this country has a Zeppelin on their postcard, so they must be very proud of their air transport, so their primary mode of transport will be air. And I think one of the things about designing puzzles is the signal to noise ratio. And I think some of them are kept very sparse in terms of the amount of information you get about them, precisely because the game is already so overwhelming.
Yeah, we can talk about the signal to noise ratio a
Because
little bit.
if you think of, and I was talking about this on a stream recently because I was playing a puzzle game, and I was saying I really don't like puzzles where it's just like you do this puzzle now and there's nothing else you can do and you're just stuck doing that puzzle. But I really like open puzzle games, and I think this is the quintessential version of one of those because it's like any given moment there are maybe 20-30 puzzles you could be trying to solve, especially earlier on in the game, and it's really a matter of just like reading around for context. And there's very rarely a moment where you're just stuck in a room with a puzzle and it's like you do this puzzle now. It's like you learn of the puzzle and then you gradually look back through your notes and you're like, which of these things relates to this puzzle? The clues are so far apart in terms of space and time, in terms of your experience of when you see a clue versus when you realise when it's relevant, that the putting the puzzle together is something that happens in your head and on your sheet of paper outside of the game, rather than like the experience of doing escape room where it's like you're in a room and there are a couple of bits of clue around and the puzzle's in front of you and you know that what's there relates to that. It's like everything is so spread out, and I think that's why some people bounce off it and hate it, and for me it's why this is one of the best puzzle games I've ever played, because it's very rare that it demands you do a specific puzzle at a particular point, you know? Going
back to the colours, types of rooms and realms, I'm wondering what you think of my potential links that I was trying to come up with. So you have the orange rooms that you can draft, which are hallways, right? And then orange is also the colour of Korarika, which is academic, which we know a bunch of the family members go to university to. So I was wondering whether the hallway and university, like hallway in schools, is a kind of connection, or whether that's just in my head.
I mean, tell me the rest.
That's for orange. And then purple is the bedrooms. Purple is also the colour of the country Eurasia,
which is where the aunt is from?
Grandma.
The grandma.
Where the grandma is from. And so she has her own bedroom in the house as well. That's named, that's like Lady Clara's
And she seems to have an association with magic and the night and stars and occultism. There's some sort of occultic thing in here to do with moons and stars that you really, the game never really shoves it in your face. It's there for you to explore. She's like the quintessential.
She's got sleep issues.
Yeah, she's like the quintessential sort of. She seems like a 1920s flapper that would have gone to a séance type person.
Yes,
that's her vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. So night, but I was also thinking like bedrooms, comfort, and family connection. So I think there's like something there. And then yellow is shops, and the only thing I could find is that yellow is also associated with the realm called Arch Aries, which is industrial, but I don't know.
Yeah, which is north of where the...
Yeah. And so maybe the shop industrial is like a connection, but I don't know.
So, yeah, I don't know how many of these things are explicit. Like the chess pieces. Have you got those in your list?
Yeah.
So there's some fun puns there, right?
Yeah.
So,
puns, are there?
Yeah, so there's these chess pieces that are a big puzzle early on, and basically there is...
Are they? I don't think it's a puzzle early on. So
okay. We noted them and we made a list of them very early on, and then we didn't have anything to... It was like finding a key and then having the key for a very long time, and then like 10 hours later looking at this lot going, man, I wish I had a key. And by that time you've forgotten you've got a key in your pocket. So
this is one of the things about this game. We filled pages and pages of A3 paper. You basically... Whenever we would draft a room, we would at one point start to write down everything that was in a room. Like, okay, this is the room. It's blue. It's got those objects in it. And one of the things we noticed really early
the chess pieces
was that the rooms, I don't think all of them, but a lot of them had just random chess pieces lying around in them, like one chess piece per room. And the reason why we started taking so many notes about what was where was there comes a point where you notice that a lot more things are either parts of puzzles or clues than you initially thought. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, everything's a fucking clue.
You become hyper vigilant about puzzles. But some of the... So there are lots of puns in the chess pieces.
Yeah.
And some of these are just like relational, like...
the bishop's in the church.
The bishop is in the church. And the king is in like the grand uncle's office. So it's like the office, the head of the house. But there are some that are linguistic puns. So for example... What is in the... there's an observatory where you can see the night sky.
So the night's in the...
The night.
Is in the observatory.
Yeah, the night. With a K.
There's... Well, you know what's in the shop? You know what's
pawn?
in the bookshop?
The rook in the book?
The bishop. Bishop. In the bookshop.
Was that on a list online somewhere of like...
Yeah.
Is that what...
And then there's a rook in the nook.
There's a rook in the nook.
Yeah.
So it's not even like the same type of puns. There's these like little...
Not same type... Well,
language...
They're not all puns, technically.
No, just sort of like dad jokes.
Word play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bishop.
The bishop.
So yeah, that was one example of that. And the swimming trunks was another one.
We did say the title of the game, Blueprints, right?
So
you draft blueprints.
Yeah.
But you are also the blueprints, which is supposedly the prints of this future nation that the revolutionaries want.
And it's such a weird mix of registers, because it's like the title of the game being a pun. If you get it, if you like see the game and you go, oh, that's a pun, blueprints, you're building, and you get it, that sort of puts you in a particular kind of playful headspace of like, and then the game has these little dad jokes in it, these little kind of slightly cringy linguistic jokes all the way through, like the swimming trunks that makes you groan. and it's very playful in that respect. But then,
I mean, I personally loved that joke.
yeah, but then there's this like underlying story about political oppression and this well-meaning philanthropic rich family
Also,
doing a
family
sort of
tragedy. Oh, here's
family
another
tragedy
thing.
and like a restoration fantasy about this one good rich family that can kind of fix the country, but
Yeah.
also may have been in like this universe's equivalent of like a kind of Republican Army insurgent force type thing.
Yeah.
And it's again to me that evokes things like Tintin, of this like weird mixing of this very twee pastoral, like, oh, we're going on an adventure in the countryside with quite heavy political backdrops, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing that you learn is that Simon's mum, right, who is the niece of the uncle whose mansion you
This is the
inherit.
purple lady that has the
No, mum.
no different. Okay,
Mum, not
Simon's mum. Okay, yeah. So
Simon's mum.
she's gone missing. So we learned that reasonably early in the story
Yeah,
that Simon
she's
has a dad.
disappeared.
You get letters from Simon's dad in the mail room, but Simon doesn't know his mum or hasn't seen her for a few years. The character you're playing as.
And you figure out that at some point before she disappeared, she was in the mansion, and then she disappeared. We don't know where she is. We don't know where she's alive. And there is something quite dark about that. I mean, in general, something dark about it, but also there are moments where you don't know whether the uncle had anything to do with your mother's disappearance, right? And whether she disappeared on her own accord or whether something bad happened to her. You find out eventually that she's part of this revolutionary group who is against the regime. And
they're not a quaint revolutionary group. They definitely have at least one rocket launcher.
they do.
You get to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call themselves, oh, is it the Black Bridge Brigade or something
Yes,
like that?
which is then an in-universe reference to a fairy tale folk story.
Yeah. And it's also a reference to Black, which is the old empire, which they kind of want to resurrect, but in a new way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mum's missing.
Mum's missing. Which I feel is a good entry point to talk about the book.
The books, maybe?
The
multiple?
books.
So Mum, before she disappeared, Mum was an author.
Yeah. She was the Julia Donaldson of this world. She wrote the Blue Gruffalo.
The Blue Gruffalo.
Yeah.
She wrote 2 books, actually. She wrote a book called The Blueprints, which was never published. But towards a very late point of the game, you find the manuscript of the blueprints.
Is it the blueprints or is it just the original manuscript?
No, there's blueprints and there's a red prints.
Okay.
So the blueprints is unpublished. You find it towards the end, you know, when you go through all the doors. And the blueprints basically tells of the story of this little boy, the blueprints, and he's gonna, you know,
make stuff good again.
He's gonna make
He's
stuff
gonna
good.
do the restoration fantasy stuff.
But she did publish another children's book, which is The Red Prince, which we find lying around the house. Then at some point you find a note saying, it's like a letter she wrote to someone saying, oh, they made me change the ending.
Yeah.
They thought it was too political. I had to change it. And then later on,
So we're getting a cat visit the podcast. What do you think about the blueprints, Kat? She did have 2 other books that you're missing.
yeah. So yeah.
The Swim Bird book.
Just before we get to that, the Red Prince, you then eventually find the original manuscript with the original ending. Now, I think it's time for bedtime stories with Dr. Joe.
Okay.
Would you read The Red Prince to us as it was published, and then also the original ending of The Red Prince as Mum intended it?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to just hand you my notes here.
So, it's not many words because it's sort of like a children's picture book, isn't it? It's got illustrations and stuff. Okay. There was a red prince who sat on a red throne. He had a red crown made of rubies and a red castle made of stone. The prince had a love for all things red. It's the only true colour, the prince often said. He could not stand the sight of a canary or crow. He could not stand the white of a swan in the snow. And he never looked up for fear of the view. He had heard that the sky was not a red hue. So he always had a book to turn his eyes down if he was ever outside when the clouds weren't around. And do you know which book the prince always had? The one that made him happy whenever he was sad. A story that he read in the bath and the bed. Maybe you can guess with the clues that we've said. It was the story of a boy who also wore red, and he looked like our prince from his toes to his head. And as you, my reader, might already assume, this book is quite near you, in fact, in the same room. A story about you, if it needs to be said, about a red prince and his book. The red book we just read. And then it says, the original ending in the manuscript. He couldn't see beyond the red shade, he was aware. He never caught a glimpse of the world I had to share, but one day the prince saw something new, and if you look closely you might see it too. The skies parted and the clouds withdrew. The prince has a new favourite colour, the colour blue. It doesn't always scan very well, which is I think why game designers don't often put poems in their games.
That was very nice, thank you.
But we've got so she's got the red prince. We've also got Swimbird.
We've got Swimbird,
which is a cute story about a bird that wants to swim, which is kind of a precursor to the Blue Prince because all the birds laugh at him because he wants to do something differently and then he wants to swim.
And he's also blue, if I remember
And he's blue,
correctly.
and he's the cuddly toy of the boy. If you go and look in the tent that Simon stays in, he has a cuddly of the Swimbird. And then Marigold, which is his mum's pen name, also wrote the new Clue book, which is like a horrible book that you can get out of the library that is a compendium of things which may or may not be clues for various parts of the game.
As a book, if I were just a person in this world, there's no point to this book.
Can you imagine going to a publishing house and saying, I want you to print 1,000 copies of this book. It's basically a bunch of cryptic clues about my uncle's house. And
I want my son to find this in 10 years' time.
It's just incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So his mum is aligned with this political insurgent group. She's making very cryptic propaganda aimed at children. Sort of like, like what if Dr. Seuss was a communist, yeah, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of, and I think finding the censored version of the Red Prince was the first point in the game where we were like, oh, there's something political going on in this world, because you find that quite early on, and you find the note that they made her change it quite early on. You don't know why.
I mean, I feel like just the published version, the censored version, is in itself very telling. Like it tells you that someone only likes the colour red, and it's the children's favourite colour in the school is red, and
there's that, and then very early on we found there's like an encyclopedia, and it's got loads of redacted stuff in it about historical stuff that they don't want anyone to know about. And again, it's partly like the nature of the type of game it is, that it's this big grand puzzle game, so it can do this way, but it's also like, is generally how I wish more games that are set in fantastical or science fiction universes approach lore. To just be like, here's a situation, you're doing this thing, and then to gradually feed in hints that there's more going on that you are going to just like organically become interested in, and then later on use in some important way. But none of it is like telling you any of this up front. It's just stuff that you find, and some of the things are like explicit puzzles, like we talked about the needing to know the relationships between the countries and the colours and the transport that you mentioned earlier. that is an explicit puzzle where you need to know that stuff as a key to unlock a thing.
Yes.
But there are also other parts of the game where you might just draw these inferences and work out these relationships for your own satisfaction. Like, we don't need to understand the mum's backstory. It's just a important thing to the player character, and it's emotive, and it's got some kind of pathos attached to it. And I really like the way, because you said about like signal to noise ratio, because there's so much information in this game. Some of it explicitly ties into solving a mechanical puzzle, and some of it doesn't. And that means that you are sort of forced as a player to treat these things as being equally important.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to solve all the puzzles, and then that means you accidentally end up learning about Simon's family, or you accidentally end up thinking about the politics of what's happened in the history of this continent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you can't avoid it in order to take in the information to solve the puzzles. And I think that's really, really neat. There's definitely a version of this game where if you played it with a Wikipedia and you played it with a walkthrough and you just did a series of actions that it tells you to do, you might not take any of this in. But I don't really understand how someone could enjoy this game playing it that way.
No. Yeah. Yeah, the noise to signal ratio, you know, which is exactly the thing that links back to what we were talking about in the last episode, which is signifiers, you know, the question of what of this is a signifier and what's just a red herring.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were lots of examples. So we noticed the chess pieces quite early on and started writing them down, and then didn't need them for hours and hours, to the point where I was like, oh man, they're not, I don't think they were anything. And then there were loads of other things as well. So at some point you have rooms, some of them have fireplaces in them, and some of the fireplaces are lit and others are not. And so one of the things I started jotting down is which rooms have fireplaces, which of them are lit and which are not. Because I was like, maybe there's something here. Maybe this is the cat picture in the kennel. So one of the rooms you don't have from the beginning, you unlock it eventually, is a kennel which has dogs in, and it has a specific benefit if you draft it. It has a picture in it of a cat and three like old school wooden blocks, toy blocks with letters on them that also spell cat, but they are like spaced out in a weird way. And so when we first drafted that room, we noticed that, and I think you can even like pick it up and look at it, you know,
I can't remember.
To signify that maybe it's important.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, so we were like, oh, what's this? What's this about? It must be about something. But for the longest time, we couldn't figure out what it was about because we didn't have any of the other parts, which is it relates to something called the castle cipher, which we only noticed very like hours later, although it's also related to like a bunch of other letters, like on the in the cloister at the back of the statue,
they
right?
all go on a grid, don't
which
they?
and I'd seen those letters on the back of the statue, but I'd written it down, but for some reason I didn't make the connection that they belong to the same thing until we then found that other big clue, which is the castle cipher, right? So yeah, there's always like things where you're like, is this a clue? Is this part of a puzzle? Is it not?
And it's reasonably like, we talked about the art style earlier, but it's not realistic. It's like a cartoon, and that means that every object that you can see on every shelf looks like it has potential. Everything's deliberate, right? So when you go into a room and there may be 4 clues in that room to various puzzles across the game, that's like 4 items in the room out of like I don't know, 20 or something, or 15 in terms of like the amount of ornamentation of things in the room. And it's not like, you know, this is a weird thing with video games, that like if you take a long running series like Tomb Raider and you look at when it was made in the 90s and then you look at now, it's like now it looks like a realistic place. And this is why in action games that are realistic, they have to do stuff like putting yellow paint on things to show you where to go.
Toilet paper.
But the toilet paper in Silent Hill, But in like 90s one, you don't need that because everything is the lower quality graphics give everything this slightly abstracted feel, and it's very easy to see what's relevant. And this is like playing around with the same sort of dynamic where, okay, we could have an even more cartoony, abstract looking thing and have less items in the room, but the amount of I wouldn't. It's hard to judge whether it feels right or not. There are moments where there's still some stuff. If I go back and play it now, there's some stuff where I'm like, I'm sure that's a clue.
And we haven't finished it completely.
But you'll
so
but it feels
yeah.
like you'll never know. I think that's the thing that would probably drive some people mad with this game, is that there is just certain stuff where you just will never find out whether it was a clue or not.
Yeah.
And I almost think that that's kind of like, this is going to sound pretentious, but I almost think that that is part of the philosophical point that the game is trying to get at, is because the way that the challenge of your inheritance as Simon is set up is that your granduncle wants to give you his big fancy house and everything in it, right? Science labs and all of this stuff. But he wants to make sure that you're smart and you're not just getting something because you're from a rich family. And that's kind of like the setup. But there's a moment towards the end as well where basically you get these communications between all of the people that used to work in the house. And they basically say they'll come back to the house when you stop doing the puzzle. Right? So it creates this weird sort of Schrodinger's cat type situation where when you put the game down and stop playing it, Simon has given up on the last remaining puzzles and all of the people come back and work at the house, right? There's like a hypothetical end to the story where that happens.
I don't think they come back when you give up. I think
But that's kind of what is inferred. It's like, you can't do it in the game. You can't make the maid and the gardener and everyone come back.
Although we don't know what happens if you actually play it to the end, because we haven't played it to the end.
Yeah, but I think it's designed in such a way that you have to decide to quit at some point, because even if you completed the last puzzle, the game isn't going to tell you.
We'll see. Maybe.
I don't know. So we got to a point where I thought we'd done 100% of the significant stuff, and then I saw something online where it does this thing to you, this game. Like every time you discover a new thing, the scale and scope of the new thing is so beyond what you thought was left in the game.
I remember when we managed to find room 46, which was very sudden. I wasn't expecting it. It happened. There's a cutscene, things happen, and I literally was like, wait, what the fuck? Is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it? Is this the end of the game?
It was not it.
It wasn't the end of the game, but it felt really sudden, and then suddenly all of these other things open up, and then it's like overwhelming, and it's like, oh my god, there's so much more.
But also that is the structure that people have come to expect from these kind of run-based games.
Yeah.
So like roguelikes, like the card games like Slay the Spire and stuff like that, it's like they set you up with a challenge to climb these 3 levels and beat the bosses or whatever. And if you already know how to do that, you could do it in an hour, or you could do it in 90 minutes or something, and you could quote unquote finish the game. Spelunky was like that as well. That was a platformer. You could finish the game in 30-40 minutes if you were very, very skilled. But the game was really designed so that you would do that, and then you would do it again, but you would do it faster. And you would do it again, but you'd do this slightly different thing that unlocked this thing that you hadn't seen before. So it's like they are loop-based games where you do a short thing over and over again. And so the way that this is structured is really just falling into that tradition, even though it's a puzzle game and not one of these, not a card game or something more challenge-based in like a, strategy or action type thing. It's still kind of following that structure. So I don't know, it wasn't super surprising that there was more, because it's kind of like the idea of, again, thinking back to board games, because it's a drafting game like Carcassonne and Ludwig, where ideally you play it more than once. So it's like trying to get to room 46 is like playing a match of blueprints or something. That's kind of like the framework it's set up. But I don't know. I think some people find the drafting bit of building the house not very interesting. I would find that enjoyable enough on its own, even if the rest of the game didn't exist. But because of what you're doing, which is choosing rooms, choosing their orientation, and then having a little look around in the room, it really does.
And then some rooms have puzzles contained within the room. Sometimes you need to combine certain rooms to do certain puzzles.
Yes.
And then you have certain like bigger meta things. Some puzzles, like the one with the chess pieces, require you to draft a big number of rooms and write down which rooms have which chess pieces, because you will need that information later on. There's another one that requires actually a lot of rooms, which is the one with the 2 pictures. So whenever you draft a room, each room has 2 paintings in it with something on it, objects. And you notice that it's not that the same room, it's not like the kitchen always has the same 2 paintings in, and the lab always has the same painting. What's on the paintings depends on where on the grid of the room you are.
Yep.
So each grid has 2 specific paintings assigned to it, and you figure out, if you look at them, you might have, say,
waist and weight.
Yeah, or bat and boat.
Yeah. So there's a letter.
There's a letter difference, and then you write down the letter on the grid that is the map of the house.
I think we should do the one about gates as like the last kind of puzzle deep dive, because that was very language based.
Okay.
So the clue you get from doing that,
the paintings,
says 8 dates open 8 gates.
Is that what it says? I've written it down somewhere. It says, if we count small gates, 8 dates crack 8 safes.
That's it. And the thing that's clever about this is, because you work your way up from the bottom of the house, we had the second part of the clue for a very long time, 8 dates count, but we didn't have if we count small gates.
Yeah.
So you get the top of the sentence later because of the way that the building of the house works. And then the 8 dates crack 8 safes bit is reasonably easy to work out, because it's like there are safes and you put a date into them, and you need to work out where those dates come from in terms of the information given to you.
There are letters or photographs or other kinds of clues that help you figure out how to...
But then the top bit, you've got if we count small gates, right? So what they mean here is the 8 things you're trying to unlock aren't just safes.
Yeah.
One of them at least is a gate, and we did that. We found a gate with a padlock on, we unlocked it, and it's like, okay. And then we found a small gate in the sense of there was a very tiny safe as well, if you can count that. But the one that is the kind of language pun is the one
small,
with the...
Wait. The small safe, right?
Yeah.
The way you... In that room that has a very small safe...
You have to have a magnifying glass to look at it.
You have to have a magnifying glass, but then in the same room is a calendar.
Yes.
The calendar has a picture of an orchard with gates on it.
Yes.
And it's a date on that calendar that helps you open...
Yeah. But the best one is the use of the pun to do with gait. So gait as in G-A-I-T, which is the length of someone's stride, isn't it? And there's a room called the drawing room that has all of these drawings around, and they're in the style of the drawings that you used earlier in the puzzle chain. Yeah. So it's kind of implied that all of those drawings were drawn in this drawing room. But then as you look around the drawing room, there are lots of people and animals.
People and a horse. It's a person or a horse, and they are walking. And
there's maybe 5 illustrations, but they're repeated. So there's like a gentleman, a lady, an older man, a
child.
Horse. And there's like, they're not all different. There's like clusters of the same one repeated.
Yeah. And this is something that I don't think we realized for the longest time, is if you look closely, they have at the bottom where the people's feet are, they have like an arrow that's like a measuring arrow, measuring how long
their gait
is.
Yeah, so then you're looking for the small gates.
Yeah.
So the phrase small gates in this sense has corresponded to the GAIT pun, right? Small gates of how fast that's one of the combination numbers is counting those in that room.
Yeah.
So it's so multi-layered because you've got the small gate in the orchard where it's like a gate with a number. You've got the room where there are small gates on the picture.
And you have the small.
Yeah.
The small.
And it's also, if you think of the whole phrase, if we count small gates, 8 dates crack 8 safes, it's talking about count in the sense of if we treat these as valid, right? 8 dates crack 8 safes. And there's 8 of them if we include small gates as a type of safe, right? That's one way of interpreting that whole thing. But then you've also got if we count small gates, which in the count basically changes meaning as well. So you've got 2 meanings of gate to mean a physical gate that you open, the gate of the length of someone's stride, and then you've got count
In
being
the
used to mean mathematical
Yeah.
and validation sense, which is like, and the thing is like, you sort of feel all of this as you work it out, but again, it's all spread out so far. I mean, there's a world where someone did all of those 8 gates in a couple of hours and they just really focused on that. But our experience of that wasn't like that, and most people's wouldn't have been. It's like, oh, you do 3 safes and then later on you go, oh, it said there were 8. What's this thing to do? It's very like you're playing this, looping through this board game of building the house over and over again, and that long meta puzzle of the 8 gates could take you hours and hours and hours,
8
and
saves.
there'd be really the 8 saves really spread out, and there's something very charming about, again, signal to noise, right? When you create a puzzle and you've got signifiers, right? You've got these signifiers. They're about, and part of your role as a puzzle solver is to map, like cognitively map what the signifiers link to. And in order for that to be a puzzle, there need to be some signifiers that are red herrings, what we call red herrings. They don't really link to anything. And there's something incredibly, they don't have to be, right? But it creates more difficulty or more challenge in the puzzle for there to be. And there's something incredibly charming about that moment when you manage to link the thing and then you start solving the puzzle and then you realize that there's a joke in there as well. And there's like a little pun. And it just feels incredibly cheeky. Probably rubs some people up the wrong way, probably feels a bit glib, but it's also very well tied into the narrative of the family and the home, because you get the idea of the granduncle being this kind of cheeky trickster that, and likes...
so also one of the things we learn
because he was a cryptographer as well, wasn't he?
He loves puzzles, and he actually wrote a weekly crossword for a newspaper as well.
And he's literally, there was a type of guy like this in history, right? Edgar Allan Poe was like this.
Was he?
Edgar Allan Poe used to write ciphers for fun and have them published in magazines and stuff. And there's like whole legends about like one cipher that Poe wrote that no one ever cracked, and it's hidden a treasure and stuff like that. So there's a historical type of guy who he is based on that's like this like mustachio twiddling parlor, and that's in there from the beginning, because you've got the parlor, which is like, it's the room you go to get some gems nearly every run that will help you play for longer without running out of room.
It's one of the rooms that has a puzzle in it.
And that kind of sets you up at the beginning to think these rooms are going to have puzzles in. And actually, it's only the parlour and the billiards room that have an explicit like escape room type puzzle that you do every time. It sort of puts you in the mood of thinking about puzzles, and then you start to think, well, these other rooms don't have puzzles in. And then you go, oh no, they do.
They are puzzles. They are part of puzzles.
Because the parlour room is like, there are 3 boxes. And they all have a message on the top.
So the instructions for that game, I have them, are there will always be at least one box which displays one true statement. There will always be at least one box which displays one false statement, and only one box has a prize within. The other 2 are always empty. And then every time you go in, what's on the box what's on the 3 boxes changes. So you might have, for instance, all 3 statements are false. 2 statements are false. The gems are in a box with a false statement. And then you have to figure out, okay, which ones are false, which ones are true, and how does that help me figure out which one has the gems in?
Mm-hmm. It's horrible. You are much better at these than me. I couldn't do them at all. It's like triangulation with logical statements.
Yeah.
And sometimes the statements get so long and convoluted as well.
And sometimes they then have more than two statements on each box, which sometimes are contradictory within the box. And it's, yeah.
So I think the last thing we should talk about or touch upon is just the untranslatability of this.
Yeah.
Because we have talked a couple of times on this podcast about translation, localization, the difference between those things, what it means to translate or localize a game well, and the challenges of doing that with humor, and the opportunities. Like when we were talking about Hearthstone, the fact that you move a language from a alphabetical language to a symbol-based language, you can have different types of humor, and you can like capture the original humorous tone of the game and do it in a different linguistic context and have types of humor that are impossible in the original language, and that was really cool. But there's stuff to do with this game where basically if you tried to translate it into another language, you'd either have to throw away some of the puns, you'd have to throw away some of the clues, or you'd have to completely restructure
and
like art assets and stuff like that.
I think actually that the small gates 8 dates crack 8 saves one is a really good example because it's multi-layered, right? So the first thing is you have this grid of the house layout.
You need a phrase made of 5-letter words to fit into the grid.
To help you as a clue. So first you need to find a message that works in there. Then you would have to redo all the painting pairs.
Yes.
To give you the letters to write the message, right? So you would have to redo those.
Which would have been hard to work out in the first place because they all have to basically be a noun that can be depicted in an image, which would have been a hard thing to do. So you're not just translating something in text, you're also having to change what those pictures are for every language that you translate to.
And then the message that spells should be a clue for how you can open those safes, right? Which in our case in English is if we count small gates, 8 dates crack 8 safes. And then we've talked about before that not only is it a clue, it's like 3 clues in one that depend on double meanings of words in the message. And then if you change the small gates into a different language, then the whole gates, as in length of stride puzzle, doesn't work anymore. And then you would have to change that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it might be a question for people listening or people watching on the YouTube channel. I would be interested to hear about other games people know of that they think are untranslatable. Because I think we've probably covered a few. I think... can you translate the Gostak? It's like I feel like the Gostak you could maybe translate the English parts, but
well, you wouldn't have to translate the non-English parts.
Well, you'd have to translate the structure of the sentences, right? And then you would need to know what the original intention was to be able to do that. So it could be very weird.
That's true.
I mean, it would be interesting to hear people's thoughts on other potentially untranslatable games. I think that the particular way that these puzzles use language and the relationship between spoken language and like symbols and images and stuff like that is part of what makes it untranslatable. Because if you have a game with physical puzzles and then verbal puzzles and they are separate from each other, you can probably shuffle things about and do, that's what they did with Silent Hill puzzles and Resident Evil puzzles. It's like there are some meanings that might shift a bit, but it still fundamentally works. But the way that these different levels and media sort of mix together in the blueprints is part of what would make it impossible to untangle in that way.
Yeah, I've actually seen quite a few comments online where people said English wasn't their first language and they really struggled and were frustrated with some parts of the game, which is interesting. So
and it's I just don't know what you can do about that apart from like Well, hopefully it would just inspire more games like it, and people can get games in their native language sort of with the same sort of vibe, because it does raise broader questions about like accessibility and why we don't get more games of this type. Because if you had this game and you were sort of, or if you had the idea for this game and you went to a big publisher, they might just immediately shoot it out of the air for this reason. And that's difficult, because you don't want to ever say, oh, this type of game can't exist because every game needs to be translatable to 8 languages minimum or whatever.
Yeah.
But that is the sort of environment or ecology that the mainstream games industry sort of produces, really. It's like, oh, well, if you can't translate this, then that's bad for business, so you shouldn't make it in the first place, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's it.
I
mean, there is so much more we can talk about.
I dread opening it again. I know that there's another big puzzle, and I saw one screenshot related to it, and the mixture of excitement and just like a very deep groan of like, oh my god, why is there more?
Yeah.
It's like it's all good stuff, but the stuff is so difficult, and there's too much of it, and it's very weird to say there's too much of stuff in a game you like, but it's like you've had your birthday and someone's given you this massive birthday cake, and then they're like making you eat the whole thing. You know?
That sounds great. That wasn't the right analogy to use.
No.
Yeah, there's much more we could talk about. Yeah, too much to discuss. You have language games, you have logic games, you have a new way to math that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I don't want to think about the new way to math ever again. But I feel like we've talked about the top level of how the game does the thing and why it's interesting and should be interesting to anyone who's interested in language. But yeah, totally, maybe not particularly accessible if you don't
like puzzles.
If you don't know English, but then also, I don't think someone who doesn't know English would be listening to us right now.
No, that's true. If you don't know English, stop listening to this.
You can listen if you want, but yeah, thank you for listening. If you are on one of the podcast platforms, please leave a little review. Leave a nice review. It's very helpful.
Give us some stars.
Visibility. Give us some stars. All of that kind of stuff. If you're on YouTube channel, say hi, hello.
Like and subscribe.
All of that kind of stuff, and have a look back through the previous episodes and see if there's anything that interests you. We do sort of jump about. Sometimes we will do an episode that is on a specific game, and we deep dive on that game and what it's doing and these sort of relationships between gameplay and language and culture and stuff. Sometimes we talk about a broader thing, like a broader way that games do a particular thing, and so we sort of jump around between a topic to do with language and culture and games, a specific text, a specific game, and sometimes like a broader set of things, like, you know, D&D, I guess, was a broader thing of like, how is language handled in a tabletop role-playing game. That was like the first episode we did. So yeah.
The final thing that I almost forgot, inspired by playing Blueprints and the puns and word plays in it, we created a playlist that we're going to link for you.
I forgot about that playlist.
Yeah.
It's very good.
A playlist of songs that are low-key about playing Blueprints.
Yeah.
You might enjoy it.
Yeah. I don't know how well it would suit to play while you play the Blueprints, but if you've played the Blueprints, then you should get a chuckle out of the playlist.
Yes. If you haven't played it, it's not going to mean anything to you. That's all from us.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No.
Let's dance,